Trials Rising is the most recent Trials game, even though it's almost 2 years old now. But I only got to play it now because, well, it got given away for free last year. And there is a reason for that. While I do really enjoy the Trials series, and I have beaten quite a few of them, including Ubisoft published ones, and even played some of the Java ones way back in the day. But the reason I didn't immediately jump into this one was because I was afraid this was one of those that quote unquote was corrupted by the Ubisoft format. And unfortunately, after finishing this game, I think I might have been right. First, we gotta address, of course, loot boxes and microtransactions. First off, there are two currencies, and why? I know why. Because one of these you can buy in real life with real money. These are the acorns. While you can still get them in-game by doing certain challenges, these appear far and far between, and never enough to actually buy anything, worth anything at least. As if this was only for cosmetics, it wouldn't bother me so much, even though it would still bother me a little bit because this is a paid game, not a free-to-play. In fact, out of the bikes you can buy with currency, only 2 of the bikes can be bought with the more abundant game currency that you just get from casually playing the game. Then loot boxes, which to be fair you can buy with regular currency, but also why would you? Most of what you get in these boxes is really boring. I swear that most of what I got was stickers or just generic t-shirts. And you can get multiples and it won't just sell them automatically. I get that maybe the objective here is to make your own unique clothes with the stickers and the t-shirts being very bland or basically a canvas. But for that to work, don't do a loot box system because then I'm just annoyed I don't have the proper tools to create what I want because I didn't buy enough loot boxes. Now to talk about the actual world of the game, and the problem I have with this now is this Trials game is more focused on your level, unlike previous games that had a bigger focus on how many medals you had, and to me it feels like a downgrade. For starters, the map is annoying to use. It's a cool idea in practice, but everything is just spread around and it's annoying to look for a specific track. Some could argue that at least this way there is more freedom in picking your track, but I think it's the other way around because Trials already gave you the ability to tackle on tracks in whatever order you wanted, and then you would unlock more depending on how many medals you had. Except here, it's based on your level, which makes it insanely grindy since doing all the tracks even with gold medals will not give you enough XP to progress. But also even once you reached the required level, you will still have to beat a tournament to unlock more tracks, which I think goes against the philosophy of the Trials games, where it would let you keep going if you had enough medals, and then what would happen is as you reached the harder levels and it became harder to get medals, you would go and do the older levels that seemed hard at the time and get a realization of how much you had grown skill-wise with the game. Here though, it's just do all the tracks, then go grind the events because that's what gives you the most XP. Events are when tracks have these sponsors on them. They're usually characters in the game and they will give you a challenge to do something in that track, like beat the level with never letting go of the throttle or doing it without any respawns, or do X amount of backflips and front flips, or even a mix of some of these together. And they can be fun, but as an optional thing. Here, they're not optional. For reference, on a track that playing it a second time and getting gold gets you 100 XP, an event challenge can give you between 2000 and 5000 XP. It's not an option, as you'll need to be at least level 90 by the time you beat this game. And it doesn't feel worth it at all. By the final few stages I was so bored and it was really hard to push to the end of the game. I felt like I was having to play the same tracks over and over again just to get new ones. And when I did get new ones, while it felt nice, soon my brain just started thinking of how many times I would have to play these new levels again. This system is bad, I think. and it's a step back from previous games, and it's not like you can just go and minimize the grinding by doing online, because the online of this game is dead. I tried and I just could not get a match going. And I say that as having played this after the game was given away for free. Now, I've been a bit harsh with this game so far, and not because I hate it, but because I think this game could be so much better. Trials games are very unique in their design, being almost like a platformer with a bike. And gameplay wise, Trials Rising is just as good. Sure, they removed the trick system from Fusion, but honestly, if you're like me, you won't miss it. Backflips are hard enough to keep track of on their own. But regardless, not only is the gameplay just as good as other Trials games, with its heavy base on physics and just a heavy feeling in general that makes it really satisfactory, especially when you can do a run as smooth as possible, but also it feels like there is much more detail in the tracks themselves as well, and some of them are very impressive design wise, able to transition between settings seamlessly within a level, and when it does that, well, it's like nothing a Trials game has done before. Even the more boring levels still feel very detailed here. The biggest problem with the levels in this game is that early levels will feel too easy to Trails fans, while later levels will feel impossible to newcomers. And this is all of course made worse by the grinding. Thankfully, Trials Rising actually has a good tutorial. And while I wish it wasn't locked behind your level again, which in this situation I kinda get what they were doing, they didn't want you to learn tougher techniques when you had no use for them, especially if you're a newcomer to the series. But still, very impressive how some of the more complicated tricks and trials can be found in this tutorial and explained and formatted in a way that feels a lot more digestible than earlier games. And it's because of stuff like these that I'm extra annoyed at this game, because at its core it's a great Trials game, and in a lot of ways it's trying to push the series forwards. But then there's just these horrible design choices that I can only guess were done out of the demand for the studio to add microtransactions. And of course I'm guessing that's what's happening, since I have no insight into what's going inside these studios. But I don't see what the developers would gain from making their games worse. Regardless, I'm here to rate this game and not its intentions. And it's a 6 out of 10. It is a good game hidden behind some awful Ubisoft grindy mess. Honestly, recommendations wise, skip this one and play Trials Fusion instead, or whatever other Trials game you have on hand. It will be much better experience, unless you got this one for free. Trials Rising should not be your first Trials game though, it will sour your view of these games. Also, not all Ubisoft games are grindy messes, and I'm really sad that Trials fell and became one. At least I managed to beat it, which is more than I can say for The Division, which has been sitting in my hard drive for almost a year now, and I'm never in the mood to play it. Anyways, as always, regardless of what you decide, I hope this review was informative, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and be sure to subscribe, as well as all the other things you can do on YouTube for free. And regardless of if you do that, well, goodbye.